Hey everyone, welcome to the Sky This Month for December of 2024. In a little bit, I will be getting up in front of you all to give a bit of an extended Sky This Month presentation with a Christmas-themed observing list. But for right now, I will do my customary pre-recorded night sky tour using the Stellarium app. So let's hop over here onto Stellarium. And I have the location set to Hamilton, Ontario. And I have the date set on Christmas Eve at 9 p.m. So we'll start off with the naked eye night sky and the constellations before moving into the planets and some night sky events. So on Christmas Eve at 9 p.m., after you've finished your Christmas Eve dinner with family, you can step outside, and over here in the west, you will see these summer constellations setting very, very low towards the horizon. We have Vega and Lyra down here, and Cygnus getting in that swampy horizon sky. So this month will be your very last chance to see any of these objects here in the summer sky, which you might want to before it disappears for a while and doesn't come back up until the early morning hours in the spring. So if you head out right after sunset, you might be able to pick out a few things over here in Cygnus, Vega, and Aquila. Moving further up towards the zenith, we have the constellations I spoke about last month. Cassiopeia and Cepheus, Perseus up here, Andromeda, Pegasus. All of the fall constellations placed very prominently up here. And then moving over towards the eastern zenith, you have the winter constellations, Auriga, Taurus, Orion, and Gemini slowly moving higher up and towards the sky. And down here, rising in the east, we have more of the winter constellations and some of the spring constellations coming up. We've got the winter triangle here, Sirius, Procyon, and Betelgeuse. And then towards midnight, they are placed nicely here in the southern sky, so you can take a look at all of the wonderful winter Milky Way objects that are in this region. Now, going through the planets, we will start off with Mercury. Now, if you read the EH article, you know that Mercury is now a morning sky object. So, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m. Just before sunrise over here in the southeast, hugging close to the horizon. You can see Mercury there. If you're an early morning person and an early riser, I am most certainly not one myself, but if you are, get up there before sunrise, head outside and see if you can perk Mercury out in the twilight sky. Moving along to Venus, back in the evening sky. After sunset, 6 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., you have Venus over there in the southwestern sky, and as the month progresses into the new year, Venus actually rises higher and higher and is very well placed for some evening observing here, and it actually stays up for at least a couple hours after sunset. And we know Venus, along with Mercury and the Moon, since it is inside of Earth's orbit in the solar system, actually goes through different phases. So right now, it looks like we have a quarter Venus. So if you can train your scope in and get some high magnification on the planet to beat out that glare, because it is very bright at magnitude minus 4.4, see if you can spot out the phase of Venus on the disk of the planet here. Moving along to Mars. Mars rises around 7 p.m. and it's still over here in Cancer. And all night long, you can see Mars moving higher in the sky and back down towards the horizon as the sun rises. So, bigger scope, higher magnification. You might be able to pick out that smaller disk of Mars here, the deep red disk. And for the month of December, Mars is also the showcase for the best conjunction that we have, which is on the morning of the 18th. So we'll head back here, morning of the 18th, and that would be a Wednesday morning, right around 5 p.m. You can see here 2 a.m. Sorry, not 5 p.m., 5 a.m. 2 a.m. here, we have the Moon and Mars. And 3, 4, 5 a.m. Now for people in northern Canada and Alaska and northern Europe, they will actually witness an occultation of Mars by the moon. Unfortunately, here in southern Canada, we miss out on that. But nonetheless, Mars does get to within a half a degree of the moon. So that is going to be a beautiful, beautiful target for astrophotographers, and it'll make a lovely sight in a wide field view, low power view in a scope. Because like I said, you can actually watch the moon dance around Mars here. Ooh, dance around Mars. And just unfortunately miss it. But nonetheless, go out that morning if you're willing to brave the cold and willing to get up that early, because it's a sight you'll definitely want to see. Moving on to Jupiter, king of the planets. Jupiter has just passed opposition on the 7th, which means that it is opposite, for the most part, the sun in the night sky. So it rises as the sun sets and sets as the sun rises, meaning it'll be up all night long for you to view over here between the horns of Taurus. We'll go back towards the evening sky here. Well placed view, very bright at magnitude minus 2.7. And like I said in the EH article, if you want to go ahead and take a look at skyandtelescope.com, they have a wonderful tool on there where you can actually track and time and plan out when the Galilean moons here, Callisto, Io, Europa, and Ganymede, transit across the face of Jupiter or get occulted by the planet itself. And you can follow them in the course of the night as they change place in their orbits here. And of course, also the shadows of the moon moving across the bands of Jupiter here. All lovely sights to see in a scope at high power. And it's really, really cool when you can follow them hour by hour and see that little black dot or that little white bright dot slowly move from one side of Jupiter to the other. Saturn this month, unfortunately, is beginning to set lower and lower. Here 2 a.m. you can see it's already set. Around 9 p.m. Saturn's getting very low in the southwestern sky in Aquarius here. But for a couple hours after sunset, it should be high enough that you'll still be able to get some good views in. Again, the rings are still almost tilted towards us, razor thin, but not quite. So you should be able to see some detail in them under high power. And before it gets too low in the sky, see if you can get out there and pick out some of these far fainter Saturnian moons, Tethys, Rhea, Dione, Iapetus, and Enceladus. Magnitude 10 and 11 and 12, they are quite difficult to see. You'll need a bigger scope and some high magnification. But it is quite a wonderful sight when you can see 2, 3, 4, even 5 of those moons of Saturn. I'm going to skip over Uranus because I'll be talking about Uranus in a bit. And then Neptune, kind of an underwhelming planet, unfortunately, magnitude 7.77. Very small disk that you can only break with a very large scope. But it is up high all night long in Pisces if you want to take a look at it. As for meteor showers, we have the Geminids, which along with the Perseids are one of the two best of the year. Unfortunately for us, the peak is on the 13th, tonight, and the 14th, tomorrow night. But as we can see here, both nights, there is a nice, big, bright full moon washing out the sky and likely washing out most of the meteors. That being said, if you can get out to a darker location outside the city, you still might be able to get 20 to 40 meteors per hour coming from that radiant point down here in Gemini. And the other meteor shower coming up is the Quadrantenid meteor shower, which peaks on January 2nd and 3rd. And that is kind of a lesser known meteor shower, but nonetheless one of the best of the year. And luckily, let's move up here. On the 2nd and 3rd of January, we are treated to a nice moonless sky after around 9 p.m. as the moon sets. So the Quadrantenid meteor shower has its radiant point in Bootes, and on any given night, be it the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th, you might be able to see upwards of 100 and 120 meteors per hour. So head out to a darker site those 2 nights and see however many meteors you can spot. Now, talking about some night sky events in the new year before our next meeting. Also on the night of the 3rd, as you can see right here, we have a nice little conjunction before the moon sets and the meteors really come out. Nice little conjunction of the moon, Venus, and Saturn up here. That'll make for a great twilight photo just as the sun is setting in the evening sky. And then the next night, the moon moves a little bit further up and is closer to Saturn. So both of those nights, the 3rd and 4th in January, make for a real good evening for amateur astronomers. And now, let's follow the moon here again for one other spectacular event before our next monthly meeting in January. So on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and on the 9th, which is a Thursday. You can see right here, the moon crosses right across M45, the Pleiades, in Taurus. So you can actually follow from about 7 p.m. onwards to around 10-11 p.m. You can watch the moon pass right in front of the Pleiades. And that is going to make a fantastic, fantastic astrophotographer's target and a fantastic telescopic target. Even in binoculars or a really wide field, low power refractor view, it's going to be beautiful to see. So mark that down in your calendars for the 9th, because again, that is before our next monthly meeting. Definitely something you don't want to miss. And now finally moving on to the deep sky. In the Event Horizon article, I talked about the area in Auriga, which is nice and target rich this time of year. And you can see over here in the east, let's go later on in the night. You can see Auriga high there in the sky with its many, many open clusters in the winter Milky Way here. But just really quickly, I'd like to draw your attention to another area of the night sky down here in Monoceros and Canis Major. Now you might need to stay up a little bit later in the night this month to get some favorable views of that area of the sky. But if we set the time here to around midnight, you can see over in the southern sky, right here, this very target-rich area of the winter Milky Way. And of course, the winter is famous for its multitude of open clusters. So if you take your telescope out, and if it's a nice clear night, some dark skies, you can just really slowly scan and move around this area here, and just unintentionally, without even trying, you're going to find at least a few of these open clusters that we have here. We've got a little beehive over here, right in the heart of Canis Major, M41, which is magnitude 4.5. We have M46, magnitude 6.10. M47, 4.4. NGC 2506, 7.6. Caroline's cluster, 7.2. We have a lot of these magnitude 6, 7, and 8 open clusters here, where you can just slowly drift along from the horizon all the way up towards Orion, and you're bound to bag at least a few dozen different NGC and Messier objects. This area is very, very rich with them, right in the Milky Way here, and it's quite a lovely area to just slowly move around and see what you can find. And if you stay up even a little bit later in the night, they get higher and higher, and you have a few other objects that poke up above the horizon here. So definitely make this area a target for your next night out, and see how many different open clusters you can find, and see what else you can pick out in this area, because there are a few different galaxies out around here in Hydra, and a few different globulars and other interesting objects towards Lepus and down in this area here. Lots to take a look at. So again, just bring your scope out here, put on about 80 to 100 times magnification, and slowly meander and move your way back and forth from the horizon up towards Sirius, and you're bound to see quite a few really nice views. And that is all for our night sky tour, and coming up now will be the 12 Sights of Christmas. Thank you very much.